BB, what do you think NASCAR should get rid of overtimes? Because every time we go to an overtime, it turns into a wreck fest and ruins good races, and we end up with bootleg winners. Says Lovey Barkley, and that is the question: to be or not to be. That is the question, right? So here's the deal. Here's the two sides of it. There's the one side that's like NASCAR should go to the scheduled distance, and if the scheduled distance happens to be under caution, that is when the race ends because that is what the teams are. That was the goal of the teams coming into the race. You can't change the rules just because there's a caution at the end. Everybody planned on going this distance. That's the fair thing to do, and that's what should be done at the end of those races. And typically, those fans are your old school fans that are used to things finishing under yellow. They don't have a problem with it. They're also used to single file restarts, so they wouldn't have a problem with that either. Like their solution to fixing what happened with Brad Keselowski is to say if it was a single file restart, it wouldn't have been an issue because the lap cars would have got a wave around if you didn't want them on the inside to finish this race. And the car that ran out of gas, the next car in line would have been Ryan Blaney. And since it's single file, he would have been no advantage would have been given to Kyle Larson. So that is their take on uh, ending under caution. Theirs is nice and simple. They've got the proof of the past to point to. Then there's the other argument that I've paid money for my ticket. I want to see a race in under the green flag no matter what. And if you want to see the race in under the green flag, that's when you open up this conversation where you were just where somebody else was just speaking to when we get X amount of overtimes, should they automatically get a splash of gas and nobody gets penalized for getting that splash of gas? Everybody stays in the order that they're in. Also, like how many overtimes, it gets into this conversation of how many overtimes do we go to before we give up? Do we put a cutoff line on the number of overtimes? We've had that before, it's been taken away. All kinds of questions come into play once you get into this conversation about overtimes, right? Overtimes non-traditional. We don't have as many data points as we have with traditionally in the past, at least, ending it under a yellow flag. And so, really, there's no right or wrong answer to it. Just one becomes far infinitely more complicated with green white checkers, right? And infinitely more chaos with green white checkers. Whereas if you end it under yellow, if you end it at the distance that it's supposed to go to and end it under yellow, it just becomes simpler and it becomes easier, especially if you go to single file restarts that end under yellow. Or you could do like back in the day, you did double file restarts into the last 10 laps. Then the last 10 laps, it's single file. So you could do that. So it just depends on how you want to go about your business. It's definitely a preference thing. There's no right or wrong answer, and just because one person wants to do it one way doesn't mean they're wrong, and just because one person wants to do it the other way doesn't mean they're wrong. And the obvious question that probably is going to be next is, don't be soft. Give us your opinion. What do you think? What is your preference? And I won't be soft. I'll give you my preference. I like it ending under yellow. I have no problem with the races ending under yellow. That being said, green white checkers, I'm not throwing my hands in the air and stomping my feet on the ground. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. But if I had a preference, I would have the races end at the scheduled distance, and that's it. That's just the way it goes. So that's the way I look at it. But yeah, got off on a tangent there. But yeah, that's my look at it. It's how I would go about it. But certainly, if you're on the other camp, uh, I'm not stomping my feet into the ground like, oh, you're wrong. I'm not all about that life. A YouTuber, I got a ride in an Arca and did good, so a bigger team signed him. Tim Pool car. Hey, there you go, Tim Pool. He's got a skateboard channel. He also does politics. I could care less about the politics, but he does have a pretty cool skateboard channel called In the Boonies or something like that. The Boonies or something like that. So they do some pretty cool skateboarding content, which is how I found out about him. And then I found out it was a political channel, and I was like, I'm not going to talk about that. But it's cool that somebody's sponsoring a race car, so I'll give it that. Maybe with the race car, the Boonies becomes just like an action channel, or an action or extreme sports. I guess I'll say maybe it becomes an extreme sports channel. Yes, I had to get a beverage here. Had to get a beverage here, man, because it's hot. It's hot today, without question. You seen that too, Mark, in Chicago. So apparently the Wienermobile crashed in Chicago. Let me pull that up because I hadn't heard that yet. Been been working on stuff, and I've been sort of out of the loop as far as everything goes here. Let me open a separate window here Wienermobile crash in Chicago. Oh, it's on its side. It looks like it's a Mini Cooper. So that's a Mini Cooper based Wienermobile. I can see that from the footage right here. Oh my goodness, this is from the AP. Let's see. Oak Brook, Illinois, and Oscar Meyer Wienermobile got into a pickle on Chicago's highway. I like what they did there. Who's the author? Let's give him some props here. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? They're just going with They're just going with AP staff. They're just going with AP staff wrote this. So I can't give them proper credit for this one. So we'll just continue here. But it got into a pickle on the Chicago highway. The hot dog shaped Wienermobile hit a car. Oh, they hit a car morning alongside Interstate 294. Its driver lost control and overcorrected, causing it to roll onto its side near the Chicago suburb of Oak Brook. Illinois police said no injuries were reported after the crash, which prompted the closure of the right lane of northbound I-29-4 or I-294. I-294, I guess is what you would call it up there, for more than an hour. Officials said. A spokesperson for the Oscar Mayer brand, which has had several Wienermobiles, told the Chicago Sun-Times it's grateful everybody involved is safe and there were no injuries. So no injuries. So we can laugh at the fact that it is laying sideways. And I'll grab the let's see here. I'll grab the link and drop it down in there so you guys can see what I was looking at there. Probably should have done that first, I guess, but we'll see. We'll see. So yeah, we're already off to a blazing start. A blazing start for NASCAR coverage. We're talking about Wienermobiles. This is peak. This is peak mid off season stream so far. Start giving the 11 car those 54 engines, says OJ and Toothpaste. All jokes aside, man, like that would make more sense because the 54 car needs to make the playoffs. Denny Hamlin is already locked in. So the 11 and the 20, they need to start getting the experimental engines, quote unquote, and stop giving them to Ty Gibbs because Ty Gibbs is getting on the cusp of being in danger of being on that cutoff line. BB, do you think NASCAR waited too long to throw the yellow for Priest? I do think they waited too long to throw it for sure. Because he hit the wall and stopped on the track. Yeah, I think they could have thrown it way sooner than that. I think they just wanted the race to be over with. I don't think I know a lot of people like, oh, they're benefiting Hendrick, and you can make that argument. You can also go back and look in past events like at Pocono last year, where Hendrick doesn't get the benefit of the doubt from NASCAR. NASCAR was just being inconsistent, and I think NASCAR just wanted that race to be over because they didn't want another Nashville. I think it was more about that than actually helping Hendrick. But obviously, the people that don't like Hendrick, I understand the argument that you're making that NASCAR was bending over backwards to help Hendrick. You can make that argument all day, but NASCAR is so inconsistent. You can literally make that argument both ways. You can show examples where it's hurt Hendrick. You can show examples where it's helped Hendrick, and for any other team in the Cup Series. And that's why I'm saying NASCAR is just so inconsistent. It's hard to say that they're helping any one team consistently, other than to say NASCAR is consistently inconsistent, and sometimes it helps you, sometimes it hurts you. And Ryan Blaney, once he got out of the race car, I should say, had probably the best take. It's just such incredibly bad luck, and that's what I'm frustrated about. Like he said, I just don't know what to be mad about. I'm just frustrated because it's such incredibly bad luck. So I thought that was probably the best take out of all of it. So that's kind of where I stand as well. It's not going to be happy I said that, but it is what it is. I'm not sponsored by anybody, nor do I choose to be at any point in the future. I like saying what I like saying. So yeah, I feel like Flow's the better deal. So whenever we're racing at South Boston, you can always catch it on Flow. Kyle, the Golden Boy Larson says I do chronic. It depends on the week. Week to week, there's a different Golden Boy, and that's what Dale Jr. said on his show today. If you want playoff chaos, how about Austin Dillon winning at Daytona August 24th? Says Bruce Carvey. It's happened before. He's won at Daytona before, so he is one to cause chaos. He no doubt about it. He's good. He's good for a win just about like every other year or so, or every 2 years. He's good for a win. And that's one of the reasons I like him. Like he's good enough to win races, even as much hell as he catches. He is good enough to win races, which is funny. Everybody's like, oh, he's the worst driver ever. He's got a truck championship and he's got an Xfinity championship and he's got some pretty big NASCAR Cup Series wins. And everybody's like, oh, that dude can't drive. I was like, he's driven good enough to win at least a few races. So it is what it is. Let's see. William Wagaman, the opposite perspective of what I just elaborated. The only race that Austin Dillon is going to win this year is beating the garbage truck out of Richard Childress Racing this season, says William Wagaman. So William Wagaman taking the opposite approach that I took there. Should NASCAR have given, and that's the beauty of sports, should NASCAR have given the the white flag on lap 159 and throwing the caution coming out of turn 2 on the last lap, if they ended up going into overtime. I mean, they should have. I don't know exactly what the lap count was, but if you're talking about the Ryan Priest wreck, yeah, they had plenty of time to throw the caution for Ryan Priest. That, in my opinion, probably should have been a caution. But I'm also not. I'm not disappointed that they ended the race because I don't think you gain anything by having 5 more restarts and 10 more people running out of gas. And wrecking is just, and I don't necessarily think that it really would have changed the leader or the winner of the race because I feel like Kyle Larson still had more gas than the rest of them. Let's see. Do you still consider it a crown jewel when they were running the Indy Road Course? No, I don't. No, the road course I wouldn't consider a crown jewel. I think it would still be really cool to win it, kiss the bricks, get the trophy, and all that good junk. But no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't consider that a crown jewel at that time. No, and I like road courses, but it's just not. It's just not the same. Maybe you're gonna do who makes it into the Sweet 16 video. I might. I might. I feel like it's pretty cut and dry though.